I imagine my beloved daughter's surprised face as I proceed with the preparations for her entrance ceremony celebration. Raising 2 children after the divorce was truly hard, but it's because we overcame it as a family of 3 that we have our current happiness. Humming a tune, I'm setting up for the party when someone visits the house. Thinking I'd ask my son Joe to buy some more time since the preparations are still underway, I opened the door. Standing there was someone I hadn't expected at all.
"Hey,"
he said, raising one hand lightly. To some, he might be mistaken for a homeless person. I was so surprised that I couldn't utter a word and just stood there frozen.
"Dad?"
Turning towards the voice, I see that my 2 kids have come home. With expressions of disgust and shock, they look at Tom. My daughter Mary, denying Joe's statement that this man is no longer our father, pulls on Joe's hand to enter the house.
"You can't live without me, right? I can start supporting you again, if you want."
Everyone took a few seconds to process his words, not immediately understanding. Tom watched the collective scoffing with a stunned expression, but gradually his face twisted in anger. He started yelling,
"Don't mock me, don't laugh. What's all the noise about? What happened?"
Just then, sensing the commotion in front of the house, someone came out from the house. I took a deep breath, ready to play my trump card against my ex-husband. Let me introduce you. This is... Joe, wake up. I won't know if you're late. I'm Kate, just a regular housewife and a freelancer in my 40s. I don't want to admit it, but there's quite a gap between the ideal 40-year-old I imagined and reality. However, I did land a job at a decent IT advertising firm, had a fair share of romance, and ended up marrying a colleague, leading a somewhat fulfilling life now. While washing dishes in the kitchen, a loud noise comes from upstairs, and my 8th grade eldest son Joe comes down. He unjustly demands why I didn't wake him up sooner, which I lightly wash away with the dish soap suds, advising him to come down the stairs more quietly. Joe is eating his breakfast toast, seemingly not listening to me at all. Still can't wake up by himself in the 8th grade. That's just childish. The 10th grade elder daughter Mary, sitting next to him, says in disbelief and brings her used dishes to the kitchen for me. She's calm and confident academically, resembling me in being shy about love, blushing and turning into a girl her age, only when the topic comes up, which is adorable. I wonder how things are going with the boy from the basketball team in her class. Behind me, taking the dishes from Mary, Joe complains to her with his mouth full. Tom, my husband, who was looking at his mobile phone, reprimands him. Mornings always start with such noise. Tom was a colleague who trained me when I was new at the company. Serious at heart, but sloppy in detail. Unreliable when it matters, that's his flaw. I didn't particularly regard him as a man at that time, but I couldn't resist his persistent advances and ended up marrying him. The first time I realized I was weak to pressure was then. Tom has recently been promoted to section chief, which has led to more business trips. The promotion is welcome, but when asked when he'll return, he always evades the question. Even if I offer a massage when he returns from trips, he brushes me off with a harsh, "Don't bother with unnecessary things." Lately, even when he's home, he's always on his mobile phone, and it feels like his interactions with me and the kids have decreased. The days without business trips have seen him coming home later and later. I hesitate to ask why he's late, so I try not to touch on the subject. Today seems to be another business trip, but as usual, he won't tell me when he'll be back. Yet it's typical of him to suddenly return and dictate that dinner be ready. As I wash the dishes, I tentatively ask about his return day gently.
"Cut it out. It's work. How could I possibly know when I can come back?"
His shout tears through the peaceful morning, freezing the previously calm atmosphere in an instant. Surprised, I barely managed to keep from dropping a plate, and I convey my apologies to Tom. However, he leaves the living room with an embarrassed,
"Wait, the household expenses for this month haven't been settled yet."
My words were cut off by the sound of the front door slamming shut. "Again? Is it?" Returning to the living room, Mary, still seated, turned to me and said, I noticed Joe's hand trembling with his mug and tried to ease the awkward atmosphere. "I'm sorry, I irritated you when you were busy with work. It's my fault." Mary ran up to me, reassuring that it wasn't my fault. I gently embraced Mary, trying to calm my turbulent emotions. Glancing at the clock, I realized it was slightly past the kids' school time. I hurried the children along and went to see them out to the entrance. Joe seemed to say I'm off, but with food still in his mouth, his words came out unclear, as if he left through the front door. He rushed out. I advised him to be careful with cars, but it probably didn't reach his ears. Holding the doorknob after stepping out, Mary turned back to look at me with concern. I managed to smile just in time, though it seemed to have failed. Her expression was unclear against the backlight, but her departing back seemed to carry a hint of loneliness. As the front door closed naturally, leaving its sound lingering, silence ensued. In that silence, the harsh words thrown by that person echoed throughout the house. Locking the front door, I shut out the negative emotions, slapped my face with both hands to psych myself up. With Tom no longer contributing financially, I have to step up. Using my experience from my previous job, I now freelance as a web designer. There's a bit of unease with my current earnings, but I intend to earn more for my children. Just then, the electronic tone signaling the end of the laundry cycle sounded. Today is a clear day. Humming a song popular during my school days, I took care not to strain my back with the weight of the laundry. Tom's business trips have become more frequent, and returning home before 11 p.m. has become rare. Even when I carefully ask about the reasons for his late returns, indirectly to not upset him, I'm dismissed with, "It's none of your business." Lately, his responses are either, "It's none of your business," a click of the tongue, or outright ignoring me. Well, there's also the bath, dinner, and beer. Tom's increasingly poor attitude day by day is shocking to me. Ignoring me, frozen in shock, he heads to the bathroom. It took me a moment to snap out of my daze, but I'm okay. I'm fine. What worries me the most right now is the household finances. I better not expect any financial support from Tom anymore. I still have some savings, but freelance income is unstable, and a crisis could happen at any time. Thinking to organize what I currently have, I checked the bank accounts I have. One is for receiving freelance payments and regular expenses. One is for the mortgage. The last one is for emergencies, for when there's absolutely nowhere else to turn. The regular use account still has money in it. For now, this isn't something to worry about. The mortgage account also has money, but thinking about the mortgage lasting almost 20 more years gives me a headache. I don't want to think about this now, so I stopped checking. And the third one, I rarely open it, so there shouldn't be any change in the balance. However, the last time I checked was years ago, so I've forgotten how much was left. I opened the banking app to check the balance. As I check, I notice recent withdrawals that I don't recognize, and they're for a large amount. The kids don't know about this account. What could this mean? It's odd for someone to steal just a portion of the money from an account. After pondering for a while, the existence of a certain man crosses my mind. A dull headache incomparable to earlier gnaws at my heart and body. It's rare for Tom to come home while it's still bright outside. While paying attention to the doneness of the meat, I think, it's fine when Tom is just lazily watching TV. But come dinner, it's inevitable he'll start complaining about the soup being too bland or the meat being too simple. Until recently, the only times I didn't have to worry were while cooking and when in the bathroom. But now it's just depressing. I'm thinking about asking him about the emergency fund being withdrawn, but it's hard to bring it up. The kids are holed up in their rooms until dinner is ready, so this might be my chance, but I'm unsure how to start. While I'm pondering, Tom grabs a magazine and heads to the bathroom. I'm torn between regretting missing this precious opportunity and feeling relieved that I don't have to ask about the money now. Noticing his mobile phone left on the table, it vibrates, displaying the sender's name on the screen just as I see it. Knowing Tom takes his time when he goes to the bathroom with a magazine, he won't be back for a while. Hesitantly, I move closer to the table to peek at the phone screen. When I see an unknown woman's name, my heart skips a beat. Then my heart starts racing, and my hands move on their own uncontrollably. Peeking at the screen, I catch a glimpse of a message that just came in. Then I hear footsteps approaching from the hallway. Quickly, I put the phone back exactly as it was on the table.
Mom, is dinner not ready yet?
I tell Joe it will be ready soon and urge him to sit at the table. Tonight will not be easy. Complaints won't be the end of it. Sighing, I grab the blackened meat with tongs. That night, after everyone was asleep, I set myself on a secret mission. The message I saw earlier wouldn't leave my mind. A feeling that I have a duty to investigate further is my only motivation now. My hands and feet are slightly trembling. I decide to sneak out to the hallway from my room. Naturally, Tom and I are sleeping in separate rooms now. As long as I can hear Tom snoring from his room, he seems to be sleeping deeply. My effort to offer him beer at dinner paid off. I tiptoe down the hallway and slowly turn the doorknob, cringing at the smell of alcohol from the room. Bending over makes me feel like I might fall over without support. Reluctantly breathing through my mouth, I quietly approach the bed. The mobile phone charger cable stretches from a socket near the floor to the bedside. Luckily, Tom is lying facing away from where the phone is, but pulling out the charger cable will light up the phone screen. I grab the cable, pull it toward the edge of the bed, and then press the phone against my chest as I unplug it. I feel like I'm not alive anymore. After confirming the phone screen is off, I quickly return to my room. Tears are streaming down my face, which I wipe with the sleeve of my pajamas. Turning on the phone and unlocking it, there seems to be no new messages. I open the messaging app and look at the messages from the woman named earlier. Hawaii was so much fun.
With Emma, anywhere's fun for me. Where to next?
I want to go to France, but Tom, how do you manage with your meager salary?
That's harsh. The money comes from my wife's secret savings.
Seriously, you're worse. It doesn't matter to us. We're getting married soon anyway. Between their messages, there were several photos likely taken on their trip. The tension from earlier feels like a lie. I am surprised at how calm I can be now. I go back to the sleeping Tom, plug the charger cable back into the phone, and lay it down on the floor. I return to my room and stand still in the middle for a while. The tears have already stopped. The next morning, I prepare breakfast for everyone with unusual efficiency. There's still time before the kids wake up. Greeting Tom, who comes to the table yawning with bed hair, with a cold stare. Good morning. Tom says nothing. Who's Emma? His hand stops moving with breakfast.
Where did you find out?
I saw it on your mobile phone. I also know you stole money from my account.
He finally looks at me.
His eyes hold a coldness and a heat like magma, but they don't affect me now.
We're getting a divorce.
He states it quietly and firmly, but I can't accept his conclusion. The fault is yours, isn't it? How did you come to that conclusion? First, return the money. Before I finish, a white plate loaded with breakfast grazes my cheek and shatters behind me. Tom bellows like,
I won't accept anything but a divorce.
A beast. As he storms out of the living room, the kids, alerted by the noise, come in. As soon as Mary came to comfort me, all the strength drained from my body, and I collapsed to the floor. Stay away from the broken dishes. They're dangerous. My words were interrupted by sobs, making it hard to speak clearly. That day, I had no energy to do anything, and even had to apologize to a client to postpone a deadline. It was the first time I ever had to delay a delivery. Tom came home from work, slammed the filled-out divorce papers on the table, packed his essentials, and left. His last words were,
Just sign them and submit them to the court.
Mary, who had been recording everything on her mobile phone, from behind the curtains came out. Joe was also on standby in another room, clutching a baseball bat. Despite my telling them it was dangerous, neither of them listened. It's a relief nothing happened this time. The thought of a parent potentially harming their own child worried me. Both kids were in favor of the divorce, but I hesitated. It all seemed too sudden. And considering the children's future, I doubted my financial ability to support them on my own. After sharing my honest feelings and consulting with the children, I decided to submit the divorce papers. Mary said she would contribute her part-time job earnings to the household, and Joe offered to help more with the housework. Though I was reluctant to rely on the kids, we concluded that we would manage somehow as a trio. A week had passed before we reached this decision. The kids mentioned feeling more at ease with Tom around. Despite some anxieties, I too found less stress in our current situation. After submitting the divorce papers at the court, the divorce was finalized. The breeze felt upon leaving the court made me feel refreshed. 3 years have passed since then. I'm eternally grateful to Mary for continuing to contribute money she earned from part-time work, despite being busy with her studies. Even when I told her to focus on her studies, we ended up arguing about it. Without the money Mary earned, our family might have fallen apart. Unfortunately, she didn't pass her university entrance exams. I feel responsible for this and deeply regret it. She reassures me, saying it was her choice and remains considerate towards me. Joe's ability in household chores turned out to be surprisingly high, significantly reducing my workload with his cleaning, laundry, and occasional cooking. However, he was hesitant about washing women's underwear, which led to a minor disagreement. Looking back, these 3 years have been filled with various events. Life after the divorce was harder than before, but we managed to overcome many difficulties as a family of 3. While preparing a special feast for Mary, I reminisce about everything that has happened over these 3 years. Today, we're planning a small family party to celebrate Mary's acceptance into medical school. She might not like it, but I intend to celebrate her acceptance into a prestigious university and express my gratitude. With Joe's help to take Mary out, I plan to surprise her with the party preparations and make her return home a memorable one. Humming naturally escapes my lips as I arrange the dishes on the table. Then the doorbell rings.
Ding dong.
Could the kids have returned already? Hoping to buy some more time with Joe's help, I opened the door, only to find an unexpected figure standing there.
"Hey,"
he said, raising one hand lightly. His hair was messy and dyed a bright color, and his clothes mismatched, giving off a vagrant-like appearance. I was so surprised I couldn't speak and just stood there frozen.
"Dad?"
Turning towards the voice, I see both kids have returned home. They looked at Tom with disgust and shock. Mary, declaring that this man was no longer their father, pulled Joe's hand to enter the house.
"You can't live without me, right? I could start supporting you again if I want to."
It took a few seconds for everyone to process his words. Tom watched our scoffing with a stunned expression, which gradually twisted into anger, while he yelled,
"Don't mock me. Don't laugh."
Our attitude towards him didn't change.
"What's all the noise? What happened?"
Hearing the commotion outside, a man came out from the house.
"Who are you?"
I took a deep breath, straightened my posture, and said firmly, "Let me introduce you. This is Bob, my husband."
"Hello, Tom. I'm Bob. It's nice to meet you. I've heard a lot about you."
I hadn't told anyone Tom's name yet. We all looked at Bob with curiosity, wondering what he was going to say next. Sensing our gaze, he offered a professional smile and exclaimed calmly, "Bob is the president of a major client company where Tom is currently employed. It seems Tom and Bob know each other, but Tom has no recollection of it. During the contract renewal process, the responsibility was suddenly shifted from Tom to another person. Was there a reason for that?" After that comment, Tom's face quickly drained of color, turning pale. Finally remembering who Bob was, it seemed Tom realized something. I imagined he must have been removed from his position due to some scandal.
"Shut up. This is outright cheating. I haven't divorced her. And this house is mine, so I'm moving back in."
I explained to him, like to a whining cat, that our divorce was legally finalized, so this couldn't be considered cheating. When I mentioned that the nameplate on the house had been changed as well, sweat trickled down Tom's temple.
"Alimony, then. You cheated, so you should pay alimony."
I countered that he should be the one to pay. I have photos of messages from Emma 3 years ago saved on my mobile phone. I also confronted him with the proof that he had unauthorized withdrawals from my account, demanding a total repayment of $20,000. The emergency account originally had $40,000 in it, inheritance from my deceased parents. He squandered half of that previous money on fleeting pleasures. Desperate to find a way out, he eventually agreed to pay the alimony and repay the $20,000. Relieved that we settled the matter, we congratulated each other. "I received this month's alimony, thank you." After counting the money, I put it in an envelope and took a sip of my coffee. I wondered how many more times we'd meet like this in the cafe to receive the alimony. Staring into my cup, I got lost in thought. Since that incident, Tom's life has been significantly shaken up. The $20,000 repayment was made promptly, but considering his financial ability, the alimony payments were arranged to be made in installments. Tom is now juggling jobs as a security guard and a cleaner. Bob decided to cease all business with the company Tom worked for at the time, cutting off any future interactions. I objected, saying that was too harsh, but Bob, with a businesslike smile, insisted Tom should be happy it was settled out of court. It was the first time I found Bob's smile frightening. As expected, losing a major client led to Tom being fired, and he's been struggling to make ends meet while paying the alimony. He looks worn out, his complexion poor, always wearing the same clothes. "So her, Emma was it? What's she doing now?" Tom asked with a sarcastic laugh, complaining about already being divorced. According to him, Emma racked up a large debt and then disappeared, leaving Tom as her guarantor, responsible for the repayment on top of my alimony. Despite his unfortunate situation, I wonder if it's too late to feel sympathy for Tom. When Tom asked about the kids, I briefly shared their updates. Mary is excelling at medical school, attracting a bit of attention, though her strong personality seems to have made her quite a few enemies. After the divorce saga, Joe has been studying hard to become a lawyer, specializing in infidelity cases. Seeing him being bossed around by his sister makes him seem a bit unreliable, but I have high hopes he'll become a great lawyer.
Even without me, the kids have grown up well,
he remarked, realizing his cup was empty after taking a sip, then placed it back on the saucer. That's true, but if I hadn't married you, I might never have met Bob, so I'm a little grateful for that.
Maybe you should be more grateful.
Don't get ahead of yourself. Tom's habit of touching his left earlobe when embarrassed is something I've seen countless times since we first started dating. When he was late for our date, when he dropped all the popcorn on the ground, when he slid the engagement ring onto my finger. I tried to sever those beautiful memories from the past and moved towards the cashier with the bill in hand. Tom insisted on paying for his part, but I quickly settled the bill with a tap of my card before he could say anything more. We parted ways in front of the cafe, and I checked the time for my gynecologist appointment. Even a leisurely walk from here would get me there with time to spare. When I announced that I was pregnant with Bob's baby, both of our kids fainted from shock right then and there. Afterwards, Mary explained the risks associated with late pregnancy and then proceeded to list everything needed for the birth, preparing meticulously. Joe had a vague reaction at first, but eventually managed to say congratulations. It seemed he was still struggling to accept the sudden news. Bob suggested that I should quit freelancing and focus on recovery, which was reasonable, but I loved my job and wanted to continue. I half forced him to agree, insisting I wanted to work until the baby was due. On my way to the gynecologist, I passed a family with children. The girl was being carried on her father's shoulders, laughing joyously. The mother pushed a stroller with a baby in it, looking up happily at her husband and daughter. I whispered to myself that I am just as happy now as I was back then, if not more. Then I left the scene behind.